Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a dark travelogue straight into the jagged peaks of the Gulthian Mountains. And look, we aren't just going to rehash dry philosophical concepts today. Instead, we're examining them as literal, terrifying entities. I want you to imagine a grim, dark graphic novel where the absolute deepest, darkest parts of human psychology actually take physical form. That's the world of the Faustbuch Übermensch. It's a grim, dark fable where our repressed drives, they don't just sit quietly in the subconscious, right? No, they literally build empires.
To really understand what we're dealing with here, let's just plunge straight into the mind of this devouring architect, the inkblot demon. He declares, "I am the culmination of your failed striving, the true Übermensch, born not of your light, but of the very primordial willy you sought to bury beneath heavy iron." Now, what's crucial to grasp here is that this demon isn't some external enemy. It's actually the ultimate offspring of a humanity that tried to lock away its own chaotic nature.
Okay, so let's dive into this descent. We naturally tend to think that suppressing our darker instincts, our chaos, builds this impenetrable fortress of morality. But the texts we're analyzing reveal the exact opposite. This desire to suppress chaos actually builds a terminal landscape of nihilistic decay. It creates what the demon calls a suffocating vertical pressure. It's this massive weight we put on ourselves that eventually flattens our potential right into the earth. To truly grasp how this happens, we need to look at three grim fables.
That brings us to Fable 1, The Scribe's Living Ink. Let's take a look at our first tale of self-destruction.
Picture a master scribe who wanted absolutely nothing more than to be perfectly virtuous. He's attempting to lock all his chaotic impulses inside this massive tome of rigid morality. But the demon points to the ancient root of the word character, which is cherisein. This literally means to engrave or to carve. So this wasn't some noble building of a moral fortress, right? It was a brutal, violent suppression of instinct. The scribe wasn't purifying himself at all, he was violently trapping his true nature.
And honestly, here is where the horror really begins. Because for every single rule of objective morality the scribe inscribed, a drop of what we call living ink escaped. Now, this wasn't just ink spilling on a page. It was a tinctura. Think of it as a metaphysical medium, a permanent staining of his soul. This ink flowed out from a stagnant reservoir of his repressed vitality, and it actually began to gain a terrifying physical autonomy.
So the crucial takeaway here is that suppressing your will, doesn't just magically destroy it. It breeds a monster. This living ink grew into this writhing, anchor-like horror of terminal destruction, complete with these massive black tentacles. And you know what the most terrifying part is? This dark architect of the scribe's downfall was commissioned by the very drives he was trying so desperately to bury.
Moving on to Fable 2, the Citadel of Heavy Iron.
Imagine a highly fortified citadel, where a legion of knights literally drape themselves in the dogma of heavy iron, totally convinced that this moral weight would shield them from the abyss. But by donning this heavy iron, they were unwittingly feeding their greatest internal enemy, the Nietzschean spirit of gravity. As the entity's purple mist descended, all their collective guilt transformed into a literal, crushing mass. Eventually, it emptied their vessels entirely, leaving behind nothing but hollowed-out, decapitated armor. They became these tragic monuments to a terrifying regression into emptiness, a place where noble human ambition simply ceases to exist.
Now for Fable 3, The Sculptor's Terminal Void. Our dark travelogue continues into a beautifully cultivated garden. Here, a master sculptor tried to capture life's perfect form, or gestalt, by suppressing all natural decay. But as we know, life operates on Werden, that dynamic, continuous Gothian cycle of becoming, growing, and eventually decaying to fuel entirely new growth. By trying to freeze this natural cycle into one single moment of eternal perfection, the sculptor broke a fundamental law. And in doing so, he inadvertently ignited this vibrant, acidic green fire of pure terminal negation.
Now, this is a super vital distinction to understand. If you know your Goethe, you already know Mephistopheles, the constructive catalyst who destroys, sure, but only to force new creation. The acidic green fire of our demon is completely different. It's a terminal void. It represents chaotic formlessness and absolute consumption. It's a literal dead end where the sculptor's beautifully cultivated garden of form is entirely devoured, leaving a void where the future literally has no room to grow.
We've seen its works. Now we've faced the entity itself in The Corrupted Übermensch Speaks.
Shifting back to the demon's perspective, we hear its chilling manifesto. It says, "I am the Dasa Dämonischer archetype,
the synthesis of negation and gravity, the terminal void that replaces the cycle of becoming with the peace of absolute consumption. It completely mocks human striving. With its massive horns, it flattens our potential right into the stone. It offers peace, yes, but make no mistake, it's the peace of total annihilation.
Behold a crushing tyrant, born from the spilled blood and shattered metal of our own failed morality. It stands over the remains of our ideals with this sinister grin, absorbing the very last of our vital human spirit into its glowing green solar plexus. This right here is the suffocating vertical pressure we've been talking about, ensuring that all that chivalric striving we attempt just ends in total ruin.
Which brings us to masterpieces of self-destruction. So, how do we actually make sense of this terminal script?
These aphoristic principles perfectly summarize the philosophy of the Faustbuch Übermensch. Notice how it takes Nietzsche's famous upward drive of self-overcoming and just violently inverts it. Instead of rising, it offers the perfection of the descent. It devours all form. It proves that a denied will inevitably gain physical autonomy. And honestly, perhaps the most sinister part of all, it operates through das Nachschreiben, the copied word. It mocks our boast of free will, revealing that, a lot of the time, we are really just tracing over old, dead scripts of ancestral guilt.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer, and to a question you really have to ask yourself. If this demon thrives on the trap of das Nachschreiben, the copying of words that aren't even our own, what ghost-written scripts of ancestral guilt are you blindly copying right now? Are your virtues truly your own, cultivated through genuine growth and becoming? Or are you simply carving rigid rules into your character, bleeding living ink, and unwittingly acting as the architect for your own devouring monster?